Let's take a look at working with effectors with the ML03. I've got a really simple scene set up here. I just have an ML3 CS, and I've upped the count to 20, just changed the color. And then I just have a ground plane, and that's it. And of course, we have a Redshift environment, so our volumetrics are working. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just add an effector to the scene. So I'm going to say MoGraph effector, and let's start with a random effector. So now I'm going to come back to the light here, and there's a slot for effectors. So we just drag and drop. And you'll see the minute I let go of this, everything kind of goes crazy. So that's okay. We can fix this. Let's come back to the random effector. So what's happening is the heads of the light are getting randomized in their position on X, Y, and Z. So if this was out of view and you wanted to kind of stagger the lights randomly, this would be great. But obviously, if the lights are in view, this isn't going to work. So position is not really what we're after here. We're looking for rotation. And specifically, we're looking for the rotation on P, on the pitch. So if I start to just add some percentages here, positive or negative, you can see that we can just very easily kind of randomize the placement of the heads in rotation, and to give you, either just a random look, or you could animate this value if you wanted to get into some kind of, kind of moving simulation here. Things that are important to know, however, the head of the light has limits on it in its natural kind of sliders here for the tilt. But the random, that will ignore that. So if you'll see, if you crank this up enough, the lights will just keep spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. So, which can be a cool effect, but it maybe is not totally realistic. So just be careful of that, okay? Let's look at something a little more controlled. So this time I'm gonna go to MoGraph effector. I'm gonna add a plane effector. And we'll drag and drop this into our effector field. And the first thing that's going to happen is all the heads of the lights are going to jump up in the air. So let's come back here, and you'll see that what's happening is that we're affecting the position here. It's offsetting the Y here by a fixed number. And this is not what we want. We want to go back to rotation, and again, rotation P for pitch. And this time, I'm just going to bring this around. Let's do it to about here, where the lights are kind of shooting straight down stage. So now what we'll do is we'll come back to the plane effector. We'll jump over to the fields. And this time, we're going to add a box field. And so now what's going to happen is anything that's inside of this box is going to get affected by the plane effector. So you can see that the lights are back to their angle, but where the box is, it's tilted down. And so as I move this through here, you can see that we can start to get this kind of dip effect in here, okay? And so this is really cool. You can animate this box just moving through your light, and you can get this kind of wave effect going on here. Now, there are a lot of different things you can do with the field, and I encourage you to do some research into working with fields where you can change the contour of things. We could invert this, and so we're going to get kind of the opposite effect where everything's down and it's going to kind of pop up for us. The other thing we can do is play around with the scale of the actual box field. So we could do this kind of more or less. And these boxes, they have fall off. You'll see there's the outer box and then this inner box. And so by playing around with this inner offset, you can kind of raise and soften the kind of effectiveness of how the transition happens. So I encourage you to kind of play around with that a little bit as well. The other thing we could do is, if I were to, let's come here to top view. If I were to take this field here and just make it larger, Let's make it big enough to kind of capture the whole light system. Now, if we come back here, you can see that I'm going to just up this fall off a little bit so it's not as kind of staggered. Okay, and so now if I take this box field coordinates and if we move this through, you get the same effect, but now the idea is that once the light tilts down, it's going to kind of stay down because it's still inside of this field. So there's lots of different possibilities here, and you should definitely read up on fields, read up on effectors, and see what you can come up with. Here's one more idea you can play with. This time I'm going to add a plane effector. And when we drop this in, you're going to see that all the lights are going to kick up into the air here. And let's go to the plane effector. And that's because our parameter, once again, is set to position here. And so that's not what we want. And so I'm going to keep all of these unchecked. We're actually going to work here with the color. And so the color mode here is set to fields color. And so let's go over to fields. And again, we're going to add a box field. And you'll see here in the box field, there is a color remap. And so if I set this to this like kind of fuchsia color here, now as we move through, you can see here that we can actually change the color where we're inside of the field. And this is where that fall off will really help you because it'll let you kind of, kind of gradiate in between the full fuchsia and the kind of white color. So this is really great. And so you could animate this to get this kind of moving kind of color field. You could also come back and invert the remapping and kind of go the other way with you. Here's the problem with this system is that what's happening is that the colors are basically blending. And so this color here is getting blended over the base color. And since the base color of the actual ML03 is white, we're getting this really vibrant kind of pink against the white. But if I were to change this to a really dark color, you're going to see that what's happening is that now that kind of pinky fuchsia color is actually just being blended in with the blue instead of replacing the blue. If anybody knows how to fix this, please comment because I would love to be able to kind of change the color on the fly here and then be able to kind of animate this, which would be great. It's not totally unuseful though, however, in that if I were to set this to black now, what I do get is this kind of chasing effect in here. So we're using color, but we're using the color, and because it's black, it is kind of controlling the opacity of it. And again, if we, make this really big, we can kind of move this around to kind of reveal or hide the lights and build these kind of nice chase patterns into it. So this is a possibility as well. If you come back to the remapping here, we're not using any contours here, so we're getting this hard edge on the fall off. But if I change this to curve, I can get kind of a softer kind of edge to it. And you can play around with this, and you might have to do some research into working with fields here to really understand this. But just by animating this box field here, now we can start to get this really nice effect. And if I shrink this down a little bit and then invert, I can do the opposite so that now we're just getting, come on, grab the arrow here. Now we're just getting this kind of chase to run down the effect. So this can be really helpful and useful for making these kinds of effects. And like I say, if you're out there and you know how to do what I want to do with the color change, please comment below. And that should get you started with working with effectors. Please explore and let me know what you come up with.